My girlfriend, well, ex-girlfriend now, we'll call her Kaylee, used to rely on me financially while sneaking around behind my back. I quietly stepped away from the relationship. Now she's left watching the life I built without her, and truth be told, her whole world just came crashing down. Kaylee and I were together for 3 solid years. I'm 29, she's 26. When we first met, I honestly thought she was everything I had ever wanted. She was the kind of woman who could walk into any room and immediately draw every eye. Absolutely stunning, full of confidence, and carried herself like she was the main character in everyone's story. I felt lucky, genuinely lucky, to call her mine. About a year and a half into the relationship, we decided to live together. Well, technically, she moved into my place, since I'm the one who owns the house. She was finishing college and working part-time, so I stepped up to support us financially. I paid for everything: mortgage, utilities, groceries, even her car insurance. At the time, I didn't mind. In my head, I saw it as an investment in something real. I thought, I'm helping her through school so we can build a future together. And honestly, for a while, it felt like we were living that dream. Kaylee was lively, vibrant, always bubbling with energy, and she made me feel like the luckiest guy in the world. I was working long hours, but it didn't bother me. I actually looked forward to coming home to her. In those early days, she'd light up the place with her presence. At least, that's how it felt. The first 9 months of living together were golden. Weekends were for road trips, Netflix binges, and just being wrapped up in each other's company. But slowly, bit by bit, things started shifting. Kaylee began pulling away. It wasn't abrupt, more like a slow, steady drift. It started with small things, like eating without waiting for me or staying glued to her phone instead of engaging in conversation. Then she started going out more. She said she was hanging out with friends, and at first, I didn't think much of it. She's an independent woman, of course she can have a life outside of us. But it started happening more frequently: weekends, random weeknights, even during the week. I'd come home from work, exhausted and ready to spend time together, only to find the house empty. When she did come home, it was either straight to bed or more time on her phone. No, how was your day? No affection, no interest. Just absence. One night, I brought it up. Told her I missed the time we used to share. She just shrugged and said, I need some time for myself. You're overthinking it. Overthinking it? I was working my ass off trying to keep us together, and I was the one being too much? That hit me hard, but I didn't want to seem insecure or controlling, so I bit my tongue and let it go. But it didn't get better. If anything, it got worse. I'd wake up on a Saturday, and she'd already be gone. Hours later, I'd get a vague text like, out with the girls, and that was it. No details. No effort. Eventually, I stopped asking. Every time I tried to check in, I was met with resistance, like I was interrogating her. So I stayed quiet, convincing myself it was just a phase. That maybe she was overwhelmed. Maybe we just needed a reset. But deep down, I knew something was slipping through my fingers. I started to feel like just a roommate. I was holding everything together, paying the bills, making sure she was comfortable, and in return, I got cold silence. It was never about the money. It was about the lack of effort, the emotional vacancy. There's one night that burned itself into my memory. I came home after a brutal 12-hour shift, completely drained. The house was dark. No Kaylee. I sent her a quick text. Where are you? An hour later, she replied, just out, don't wait up. That was it. No apology. No explanation. Nothing. I just sat there on the couch, staring at that message with this tight, heavy feeling in my chest. And I thought, what the hell am I even doing? I kept telling myself maybe she needed space. Maybe school was stressing her out. Maybe this was just a rough patch. But deep down, I already knew. I was pouring everything I had into this relationship, and she couldn't even be bothered to care. I really did love her. I wasn't with her for fun. I saw her as part of my life, my future. I truly believed we were in it together. But over time, it became painfully obvious. I was the only one showing up. She was coasting while I was pushing forward. And that made me question everything. Was I too nice? Was I just enabling her to take advantage of me? I didn't want to believe that. But I couldn't deny how I felt anymore. Every time I came home to an empty house or sat next to her while she stared blankly at her phone, it felt like a gut punch. I was giving her everything I had, and in return, I got crumbs. I vented to a couple of close friends. They didn't sugarcoat it. One said I needed to set boundaries. Another joked that I was her sugar daddy, minus the sugar. We laughed, but the truth behind the joke hit me hard. I didn't want to believe Kaylee was using me. I wanted to think the best of her. But the signs were stacking up fast, and I couldn't keep turning a blind eye. At that point, I knew I needed a real, honest conversation. I had to find out if we were still in this together, or if I'd been chasing a fantasy. I promised myself I'd bring it up the next time we had a quiet evening, if that moment ever came. And that night, sitting alone in the dark, I asked myself the hardest question of all. Was Kaylee ever really the woman I believed she was? Or did I just convince myself she was, because I wanted it so badly to be true? That question wouldn't stop echoing in my head. It just kept looping, haunting me. For the next few days, I was stuck in this mental fog, constantly thinking about how to bring up what I was feeling without sounding accusatory. I didn't want to come off as paranoid or controlling. I just wanted honest answers. But Kaylee ended up beating me to it, and not in a good way. One night, she actually stayed in. I remember feeling a sense of relief, thinking, finally, a normal evening. Maybe we get a chance to reconnect, sit down, eat, have a real conversation like we used to. We ordered takeout and collapsed on the couch. We started chatting about random stuff, and for a little while, it felt like the old days, before everything got messy. For a moment, I let myself believe we might be turning a corner. But then the conversation drifted to relationships and loyalty. I don't even remember how it got there. Out of nowhere, I made a casual comment about how important it is to feel like you and your partner are on the same team. Harmless, right? She gave this weird little laugh, tilted her head, and looked at me like I was some naive kid. Then she dropped the line. You know, you're pretty replaceable. At first, I thought I'd misheard her. I blinked, asked her to repeat it. She said it again, this time with a grin, like it was some kind of punchline. Then she added, "Don't take it so seriously. I'm joking." Except, it didn't feel like a joke. Not even a little. I just sat there, staring at her, trying to figure out if she realized how cruel that sounded. But she didn't even blink. Just went right back to scrolling on her phone like she hadn't just knocked the wind out of me. I didn't want to blow up or make a scene, so I kept my voice calm. I asked her, "Is that really how you see me?" Without even looking up, she rolled her eyes and said, "Oh my God, you're being dramatic." Of course not. But, come on, it's true. Then came the kicker. Guys hit on me all the time. It's not my fault if that makes you insecure. I was stunned. Not only did she double down, but somehow I was now the problem for having a reaction to her words. And the worst part? There wasn't even a flicker of remorse. No apology. No awkward backtracking. Just cold indifference. The rest of the night was tense. We barely spoke. She eventually went to bed early, probably annoyed I wasn't laughing along with her little joke. I stayed on the couch, running it all back in my head. I couldn't shake the feeling that she meant it, that I really was just another guy in a long line of options. Nothing special. Just convenient. The next day, I tried to act normal. I figured maybe she'd bring it up, acknowledge it, maybe even apologize. But nothing. She kissed me on the cheek on her way out like nothing had happened. Like we hadn't just crossed some line the night before. That's when it hit me, she didn't care. Not about how her words landed. Not about how far things had drifted. I wasn't her partner anymore. I was background noise. She liked the comfort, not the connection. From that moment on, I started noticing the small jabs more clearly. Offhand comments about guys checking her out. Jokes her friends made about her being the hot one in the relationship. Stuff I used to laugh off suddenly felt sharp. Like she was testing how much I'd tolerate. I'd never been the jealous type. I always believed trust was enough. But this wasn't about jealousy anymore. It was about respect. And Kaylee had lost all of it for me. So I began to pull away. I stopped texting her during the day. Stopped checking in. I didn't ask how school was going or whether she needed anything. Honestly, I just stopped trying. Because why keep pouring myself into something when it clearly meant nothing to her? Still, I wasn't ready to walk away. Not yet. I kept second-guessing myself. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe she really was just joking and I was too sensitive. After all, 3 years is a long time to throw away over one night. But deep down, I knew it wasn't just one night. That comment was just the final spark in a fire that had been burning for a long time. The distance. The passive contempt. The way she stopped trying. That night just made it impossible to ignore. A few days later, I was sitting on the couch again, scrolling through my phone, when Kaylee walked in. She barely acknowledged me before heading straight to the bedroom. I called after her. "Hey, do you have a second? I want to talk." She sighed, long, exaggerated, like I'd asked her to lift a mountain. "What?" she said. I steadied myself. Do you even want to be in this relationship anymore? She turned and looked at me like I'd lost my mind. What kind of question is that? Of course I do. Why wouldn't I? I wanted to say, because you treat me like I'm disposable. But all that came out was, I don't know. It just feels like we're out of sync. She rolled her eyes again. You're overthinking everything. Can we not do this right now? I'm exhausted. And just like that, she shut the door behind her. No conversation. No effort. Just shut down, like it wasn't worth her time. I sat there, staring at that closed door, and finally admitted to myself, something had to change. I couldn't keep pretending this was okay, because it wasn't. And I was done lying to myself about it. Before I could even figure out how to deal with everything happening with Kaylee, life hit me with the first real punch. Just a couple of days after that awkward, half-hearted conversation, I got a phone call I never saw coming. It was from one of her friends. Let's call her Tina. Now, Kaylee and Tina were close, not best friends, but tight enough that a call from her out of nowhere was definitely strange. At first, I almost ignored it. I mean, what could Tina possibly have to say to me? But curiosity got the better of me, and I answered. Hey, what's up? I said, trying to keep my voice calm, even though my gut had already started to twist. Tina didn't bother with small talk. Look, she said, I don't even know if I should be telling you this, but I feel like you need to know. Right then, I knew the call wasn't going anywhere good. I sat up straighter, bracing myself. She's been seeing other people, Tina said. And not just one, multiple. It's been going on for a while. I froze, gripping my phone like it was the only thing holding me upright. After a few seconds, I finally managed to say, Are you sure? Tina let out a breath. I'm sure. I didn't want to get involved, but we had a fight the other day and some things came out. She's been bragging about it, like it's nothing. She even called you her backup plan. Backup plan. That landed like a punch to the chest. I'd given everything emotionally, financially, mentally, to build something real with her. And the entire time, I was just her fallback? Someone to keep around while she tested the waters with other guys? I wasn't angry, I was numb. I asked, honestly, not accusing. Why are you telling me this now? She paused. Because it's messed up. You're a good guy. You don't deserve this. If I were in your shoes, I'd want someone to tell me. And I believed her, mostly. The thing is, I knew Tina and Kaylee had a rocky friendship. One minute they were inseparable, the next they were talking behind each other's backs. Tina was always quick to throw shade when Kaylee wasn't around. So yeah, I had to consider the possibility she was exaggerating or stirring drama. But the timeline made too much sense. All those vague nights out, the empty excuses, the emotional distance, it all clicked. Tina's words didn't feel like gossip. They felt like the final puzzle piece. Still, I couldn't just take her word for it. I needed to see it for myself. Over the next few days, I kept my guard up, watching how Kaylee acted, listening closely, but not saying a word about what Tina told me. If I confronted her head-on, she'd just deny it or twist it until I was the one at fault. So I played it smart. I knew Kaylee's patterns. She had a routine. Nights out, always vague. Always just seeing friends, but never naming them. Nothing specific. Always elusive. The next time she said she was going out, I casually asked, Cool. Who are you meeting? She didn't even look up while grabbing her keys. Oh, just Sarah, she said. That name raised a red flag immediately. I waited an hour, then called Sarah, kept it friendly. I didn't want to sound suspicious. Hey, Sarah, I said casually. Kaylee mentioned she was hanging out with you tonight. I think her phone died. Just wondering if you knew when she might be back. There was a pause. A long one. She's not with me, Sarah said slowly. I haven't seen her in a while, actually. She sounded genuinely confused. That was it. The first real confirmation. I kept my tone light. Oh, no worries. Maybe I got it mixed up. Thanks, though. Hung up. Stared at my screen. My mind was racing. If she wasn't with Sarah, who was she with? And where? Then I remembered this little cafe bar she used to love when we first got together. A cozy, quiet spot she stopped mentioning months ago, almost like she wanted it forgotten. But something told me she hadn't forgotten it at all. I got in the car, parked a few blocks away so she wouldn't see me. My heart was pounding, but I stayed focused. Maybe Tina was wrong. Maybe I was overreacting. But deep down, I already knew. As I walked toward the cafe, part of me hoped I'd find nothing. That she wouldn't be there. That I could go home and pretend I had just let paranoia get the better of me. But there she was, sitting by the window. And she wasn't alone. She was laughing, leaning in close to a guy I'd never seen before. The way she looked at him, lit up eyes, playful smile, brushing his arm like it was the most natural thing in the world, told me everything. And just like that, my stomach dropped. The truth I'd been trying not to face stood right in front of me. What I saw through that cafe window wasn't friendly. It wasn't two people catching up. It was intimate, way too intimate. The kind of closeness that screams betrayal. And in that instant, everything I'd been trying to suppress, every gut feeling, every quiet doubt I'd convinced myself was paranoia, came crashing down like a tidal wave. I didn't storm in, didn't make a scene. Trust me, part of me wanted to, but I kept my cool. My hands were shaking as I pulled out my phone and snapped a photo from the sidewalk. I made sure to get just enough of them in the frame without drawing attention. As I stood there, capturing that moment, a storm of anger, humiliation, and, oddly, relief surged through me. All those moments where I'd second-guessed myself, all the rationalizations I'd made for her distance, were staring back at me through that glass. She had been lying. No doubt left. But the part that cut the deepest wasn't just the cheating, it was that she thought I'd never notice. Like I was too naive or too blind to ever figure it out. But now, I had the truth in my hands. And I wasn't going to keep pretending everything was okay. The next morning, I woke up feeling something unexpected, not rage, not heartbreak. Just clarity. It was over. She'd already walked away in every way that mattered. Now, it was my turn. Time to take back my power and show her who was really replaceable. I didn't waste time. First, I canceled the automatic payments on her car insurance. She'd been relying on me to handle that for months. That car she loved so much? Not my problem anymore. Let her figure it out. Next, I cleaned out the fridge. It was full of her favorites, organic yogurts, fancy waters, overpriced imported cheeses she always insisted on but never finished. I tossed it all. I wasn't going to keep catering to someone who treated me like a doormat. Then I sat her down. Calm, direct, no emotion. I told her she'd need to start covering her share of the utilities, water, power, internet, everything. I wasn't running a charity. She looked at me like I'd just spoken another language. Confused, maybe even insulted. You're a grown adult, I said. It's time you start living like one. This wasn't about revenge or pettiness. It was about boundaries, something I should have enforced a long time ago. I was done being her safety net. If she thought I was just a placeholder in her life, she was about to find out otherwise. It didn't take long for her to lash out. A few evenings later, she came stomping into the living room, waving a letter like it had personally offended her. It was from the car insurance company. Why didn't my payment go through? She snapped, brandishing the paper like it was evidence in a trial. I didn't even look up right away. Because I stopped paying it, I said, calm and steady. Her eyes narrowed. What's that supposed to mean? It means, I replied flatly, you're responsible for it now. You're not a kid, Kaylee. Handle your own stuff. Her face tightened. Her voice shot up a notch. What's your deal lately? You've been acting weird, and now this? Are you seriously trying to punish me for something? I let out a dry, bitter laugh. The irony of her saying that after everything almost impressive. Punish you? I said, meeting her eyes. You've been sneaking around behind my back while I was keeping this house afloat. Did you really think I wouldn't find out? She went pale. For a second, I saw her consider lying. But instead, she crossed her arms, trying to hold on to whatever shred of control she thought she had. Who told you? She snapped. Fake confidence in her voice, but the panic was there. I could see it. I leaned back in my chair, didn't flinch. No one had to tell me, I said. I saw it with my own eyes. I pulled up the photo from the night before, the cafe window shot. I held it out to her without another word. There she was, plain as day. Laughing, flirting, practically wrapped around a guy I'd never seen before. Ring any bells? I asked, my voice sharp, cold. Before she could spin it, before she could lie or gaslight or flip the narrative, I pressed on. So, Kaylee, how many of those guys who hit on you all the time are you actually dating? Because from where I'm standing, it sure looks like you've already moved on, while still living in my house. That's when the mask dropped. The fake charm turned to raw anger. You don't get it, she shouted. I needed attention. You were always working. I didn't even feel like I had a boyfriend anymore. I stood slowly, keeping my eyes locked on hers. You made your choice, I said. You took what we had for granted. You thought I'd just stick around while you gave less and less. But let's get one thing clear. I was never your backup plan. She snapped back, voice rising. You're being ridiculous. Every girl gets hit on. That doesn't mean anything. And then came the guilt trip. Maybe if you'd actually paid attention to me, I wouldn't have felt the need to go out all the time. That was it. The final straw. I looked her dead in the eyes, my voice low and cold. Don't you dare put this on me. You know, she had a choice. She could have come to me, sat down, and talked things through like an adult. But instead, she decided that cheating was the easier route. That's not on me. That's all on her. Kaylee's expression shattered. I could see the panic sink in, but I didn't flinch. You wanted to know what's been bothering me? I said, voice steady and clear. Well, Kaylee, it's you. And I'm done. She opened her mouth to respond, but I cut her off before she could say a word. Spare me. Grab your stuff and get out. You're not staying here anymore. The words landed like a bomb. I saw her trying to process it, trying to spin the situation in a way that gave her leverage. But I wasn't playing that game anymore. Not this time. You can't just kick me out. She cried, her voice cracking as tears started streaming down her cheeks. I have nowhere else to go. She was shaking, sobbing, pleading. I can fix this. Please, just give me a chance. I swear I'll make it right. I looked her in the eyes. She was trembling, trying to reach the part of me that once would have given in. Kaylee, I said calmly, I worked my ass off to build a stable life. I was building it for both of us. But you made it clear, you don't belong in it. I paused, then added, remember when you said there were tons of guys who'd be lucky to have you? Maybe it's time you go find one. I'm out. That broke her. She collapsed to her knees, crying so hard it looked like the weight of her choices had finally hit her. Hands clutched to her chest, desperate, pleading. I didn't mean it, she sobbed. It was a stupid joke. I wasn't thinking. Please don't make me leave. I'll do anything. I'll change. But I didn't move. My response was final. You made your bed, Kaylee. You lied. You used me. You treated me like I was just some placeholder while you went out chasing attention. Now you've got to live with the consequences. Saving you? That's not my job anymore. And just like that, her tears turned to fury. She stood up, wobbling, her expression twisting into anger. You'll regret this, she hissed. You'll regret losing a girl like me. You'll never do better. I let out a short, sharp laugh. Better than you? I said, raising an eyebrow. Kaylee, you've already been replaced. You just don't know it yet. She froze, mouth half open, like she wanted to say something but couldn't find the words. Then, in a storm of frustration, she grabbed what she could and stormed out, slamming the door so hard the windows rattled. And in the silence that followed, I didn't feel guilt. I didn't feel regret. What I felt was peace. For the first time in a long time, I was free. In the days that followed, a wave of emotions came and went. I kept asking myself how I let it get this far. How I ignored so many signs. But that self-reflection didn't last long because, of course, Kaylee wasn't going to exit quietly. Word started getting back to me through mutual friends. She was spinning a whole new story, painting herself as the victim. According to her, I was controlling, emotionally abusive. She said I kicked her out for no reason and made her feel like a prisoner. At first, I was furious. I wanted to go on the offensive to set the record straight. But then I realized something important. The people who really knew me? They didn't buy it. They'd seen everything. How much I gave, how hard I tried. If someone actually believed her version of events, they weren't people I needed in my corner anyway. A few weeks passed. One afternoon, I bumped into a mutual friend at a coffee shop. We got to talking, and naturally, her name came up. Oh, they said, smirking. You know she's already moved on, right? Started dating some rich guy. I just shrugged. Not my problem anymore. Then came the kicker. Didn't even last 2 weeks. He dumped her the second he found out she'd been living with you for free and that you'd paid her tuition. Apparently, he didn't want to be her next bank account. I chuckled. I couldn't help it. That was Kaylee in a nutshell, always chasing the next upgrade, thinking she was untouchable. But the truth always catches up. And I didn't feel bad. She built that reality. Now she could live in it. Honestly, the only thing I hoped for at that point was that she wouldn't show up at my door again, begging for another shot or starting more drama. I had zero intention of repeating that cycle. Thanks for sticking around for the story, everyone. If anything else comes up, I'll let you know. But as far as I'm concerned, this chapter's closed. Time to move forward. Final update. Hey folks, just wanted to share one last update on how life's been since Kaylee left. Here's the truth. She always thought she was the prize. Thought I should be grateful to have her. But the reality? She wasn't the prize at all. About a month after she walked out, I met someone new. Let's call her Rachel. And Rachel, She's everything Kaylee never was. She's kind, grounded, supportive. She listens. She shows up. She doesn't treat love like a transaction. She doesn't just take, she gives. She was the first person in a long time who actually gave back in a relationship. With Rachel, I finally felt seen, respected, appreciated, valued. Word about our relationship spread fast. I'm not sure how Kaylee found out, maybe through someone we both knew, maybe online, but the moment she realized I'd moved on, she lost it. From what I heard through mutual friends, she was crushed. The reality that I had moved forward while she stayed stuck hit her hard. No one wanted to deal with her anymore, and it was finally starting to sink in. At first, she tried subtlety. Random texts. Hey, can we talk? Here and there. She even started showing up at places she knew I might be, hoping I'd notice her. I ignored it all. Every message, every encounter. My energy was on Rachel, on someone who actually deserved it. But Kaylee never handled being ignored well. When subtle didn't work, she went full spectacle. One evening, I heard shouting outside my house. At first, I thought it was just noisy neighbors. But then I recognized the voice, Kaylee's. Angry. Desperate. I opened the door, and there she was on my porch like she still lived there. 4 of her friends stood behind her like backup singers in a soap opera. Their faces were twisted in judgment, their voices sharp. You're unbelievable, one of them shouted, pointing at me like I was on trial. You think you can just toss her aside like she's nothing? Kaylee sobbed between accusations, you're heartless. She looked completely wrecked, but I didn't flinch. I wasn't going to match chaos with chaos. After everything we've been through, you're just going to throw me away? She cried, mascara running down her cheeks. I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, calm as ever. What do you want, Kaylee? I asked, flat and focused. Say what you came to say. I'm not here for a performance. Her voice cracked. I came here because you won't talk to me. You just shut me out, like we never meant anything. One of her friends chimed in with rehearsed outrage. You have no idea what she's going through. She deserves better than this. I stayed silent for a moment. Then, cool and composed, I asked, Are you finished? Kaylee hesitated, looked to her friends for backup, then dropped the bomb. I'm pregnant, and it's yours. Everything went quiet. Her friends stared at me, waiting for an explosion. I didn't give them one. I just stood there, hands in my pockets, calm. Is that right? I finally said, raising an eyebrow. And you brought a crowd to break the news because… What? You needed witnesses? She sniffled, trembling. I didn't know how else to tell you. I've been scared. I didn't know what to do. I nodded. All right. Then let's skip the theatrics. If it's true, show me proof. A test. A doctor's note. Something real. Her friends glanced at each other, visibly nervous. One jumped in. She just found out, okay? She hasn't had time for that yet. Are you seriously that cold? I turned back to Kaylee. That true? I asked. Because if it is, we'll handle it like adults. But if this is just another game, you can stop right now. That flicker of panic in her eyes gave her away. She tried to mask it, but it was there. Why don't you trust me? She snapped. Why would I lie about something like this? Because you've given me every reason not to, I said flatly. So prove it. If it's real, we'll talk. If it's not, I'm done listening. That's when the chorus kicked in again. Her friends shouted insults, called me names, tried to stir up a scene. I didn't react. I kept my eyes on her. And then she looked away. That tiny pause? That was all I needed. Eventually, the mob broke apart, stomping off in a wave of drama and empty threats. Kaylee's big performance had fallen apart. I didn't let it show, but it shook me. A little. What if there was truth to it? A few days later, I got my answer. Tina, the same friend who warned me about the cheating, reached out again. She'd been watching the fallout and had something to say. She's not pregnant, Tina told me. She made the whole thing up. She's been spiraling since she found out you're with someone new. That scene? It was just her trying to reel you back in. I wasn't surprised. Just disappointed. And disgusted. That was it for me. I blocked Kaylee on everything. Every platform. Every number. I didn't care what stories she told or who she told them to. That mess? Not mine to clean up. I kept investing in what mattered, Rachel. A woman who actually saw me, respected me, and valued everything I brought to the table. Kaylee always believed she was one of a kind. Irreplaceable. But in the end, she was the easiest person in my life to replace. Last I heard, she was couch surfing, dropped out of school, cut off by her parents. And honestly, I couldn't bring myself to feel sorry. Actions have consequences. She burned every bridge she had. She threw away something real because she thought she could do better. Turns out, she couldn't.